Welcome to Watercolour Westport's Stories podcast. We're so glad you joined us today. You're going to hear some inspiration again. Today we're going to talk to a homeowner who moved to Watercolour to learn more about the journey of a remote worker living in cottage country and what does that feel like, how have they adjusted, and what are some of the wonderful benefits that they're enjoying. So I hope you enjoy the podcast and you'll meet again with Stephen Rolston, founder and owner of Landark Homes and the visionary behind Watercolour. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Wafa.
So good to be with you again today. I think today is a really exciting episode that you're going to be exploring the idea of what it feels like to live in Westport and in Watercolour and be a remote worker. Who have you got for us today?
Jonathan Buma, and I was particularly interested in starting our podcast stories with Jonathan because he's one of our first remote workers. And a famous U of T prof, an American by the name of Richard Florida, in all his books, he talks about the creative class. And that's the name of one of his books, The Creative Class. And how in the US, maybe as many as a third of the American workforce can be people who are hybrid workers or remote workers. And we have many of these families living here in Watercolour.
You know, I think the freedom that allows, that creative class, and that those individuals can enjoy a lifestyle that is maybe more balanced. Maybe it provides them with opportunity to provide for their family because they can work remotely as well as look after a young family. What do you think when you started Watercolour? Was that on your radar?
Very much so, because part of this, the start of it was, how are my sons ever going to afford a home?
Okay.
And so now our eldest son, Christian, is 26, Adam and William are 24. And that's the same thing that haunts most builders is with the price escalation due to COVID of materials and labor. Everything is double or triple what it was before COVID. So it's been quite a price shock for all of us. And when I think of groceries or the cost of an automobile or a liter of gas, it's just universal that there has been so much hidden price inflation in the last 10 plus years.
Okay, and when you met Jonathan for the first time, was one of his first questions related to the accessibility of Westport as a hub for both like the connectivity of internet, but then also did he question you a lot about the location being accessible?
Actually, he dealt with our realtor, Zach, much more so than he did myself, but I've gotten to know him after he's moved in, and he's just an amazing, amazing young man. And same with his wife, Samantha, who we hope to interview. Just an incredible family. And they just shine such a beautiful light of the possibilities and the invitation of the art of the possible, how to have a great life.
Yeah. You know, I felt, I think today when you're talking to him, I've gotten to see the episode, so that's been a real joy to me. But I felt for him that sense of joy, that that possibility has unfolded in such a beautiful way.
It has, and Samantha was a little reluctant coming here, but that has not just completely been removed, but completely the opposite, as she shared with us in her letter. And that's another reason we wanted to just give a shout out to this amazing transformation journey of a place, and how a place, the place of Westport, really brings peace and it really brings joy. And that was very evident in chatting with Jonathan.
That's great. Well, we're looking forward to sharing that conversation with our listeners. So thank you for taking the time to introduce him and to make the relationship a possibility that you can have this conversation and share it with others. I think you'll be inspired.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you very much, Jonathan, for being here. I'm so thankful that you've made time to be interviewed on the Watercolour Stories podcast.
Yeah, glad to be here.
But since I know a little bit about you and our friends who might be listening or watching don't, maybe I can just have you share a little bit about you and who you are.
Yeah, so 39 years old, happily married. I have 3 young daughters, age 2 through, well, soon to be 6. We've been living in watercolor. We just hit our 3-year anniversary, so we were, I think, the 4th or 5th family to move in here. So we've really enjoyed living here, and yeah, it was a big transition for us moving here, but it's worked out well. I work from home as an application specialist for the University Health Network in Toronto. And who'd ever thought you could work for a Toronto hospital and live in Westport? So it's been great.
Well, let's just talk about that, Jonathan, since I know you've had such a varied career doing so many things, and now you're working remotely. Can you just give us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah. I've done a lot of different things, from law enforcement to sales, but healthcare has kind of been my niche for over 10 years. The pandemic impacted us all in a lot of different ways. I was living in Grimsby at the time in the Niagara region. It's a region that was becoming more and more densely populated. And as lockdowns took place during the pandemic and we were just starting to have kids, made us question a lot around what kind of environment we wanted our kids to grow up in. And the pandemic also was a huge catalyst for remote work. I had grown up coming to Westport in the summers, the Cottage here, and a bunch of extended family in the area. So fishing, hunting, hiking, all that good stuff, which normally I'd have to drive half hour to an hour when I was in Grimsby to go find some really good places. And so we thought, maybe we can just live in cottage country. So we came up to Westport. We were also looking in Kingston, but we had checked out some homes there, and there were all these competing offers. So I told my wife, let's just go look at Watercolour. We'll know what the price is. There's no guesswork in that, and we'll know we get a brand new home that's award-winning team has put together, and so it'll be good craftsmanship. And I guess an appealing thing about Westport was that leaving suburbia in the Niagara region, you worry about things like, well, we did around a well and septic, but for being in Westport, it was municipal water and sewage, and so it was little things like that. And then a big one was fiber optic internet access, so high-speed internet. So same speeds I enjoyed, living in the GTA and Niagara region, I could get here, which meant that remote work became viable. And now 3 years on, we're doing it. So it's great because I can pursue my interests, which are fishing and hunting. I drive less than 5 minutes, and I'm fishing on the Upper Rideau, catching bass and pike, and the kids get to see that and partake in the spoils of it for dinner time, or I just go hunting locally and have our venison. And I always thought I attributed that with vacation, but now I can just weave it into everyday life. So that was a huge draw factor for us, and the kids are more connected with creation because of that.
Well, you've answered a lot of questions I was going to ask, quite frankly, about, who are you, where are you coming from, what you do in the marketplace, and really why you chose Westport. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit on the why.
Yeah, I know it was going to be a struggle. We were looking at Kingston specifically because of creature comforts like movie theaters, shopping malls, things like that we were used to living in Grimsby, that were all within close driving distance. But you think about your children and the lifestyle you want them to have. I know Westport has Catholic and a public grade schools. They're both within 5 minutes from the development. So we knew we had options there, and there's also a thriving homeschool community here too. So we knew we had that as an option. Um, and yeah, I even thought, even if, say, Westport doesn't work out, I thought from a resale perspective in terms of an investment, I thought it was pretty safe buying in the village of Westport, since it's such a tourist destination. I thought I'd be protecting my assets that way because of how well known it is. And when we did move here, it was a little bit of a struggle in terms of the adjustment. So we drive to Kingston just to walk around the mall during the winter time. Now we can pursue things like ice fishing and hiking, things now, cross country skiing, now that we're more comfortable with the area. But yeah, it's not that far of a drive to get to a mall there. And the best part is, we're just going down back roads to get there. And kids are seeing deer, cliffs, lakes, trees, not a sea of red brake lights on the QEW that we were used to. So I don't actually don't mind doing the drive. We still have those creature comforts, but the kids are just more planted in a natural setting, and also thought Westport would be more pandemic proof in terms of when we experienced lockdowns and all of a sudden there was a lot of restrictions on where you can go. Well, if you're already in kind of the outdoor mecca, there's, lockdowns are of no impact to us because we can go swimming and fishing and hunting and exploring, and the kids do nature journals. There's a trail that runs through Watercolour. They go down to the creek there, and there's frogs there, and the dog loves running around too. Westport was kind of a no-brainer because we could protect our assets by being in a popular tourist destination, but still be rural enough to enjoy creation more. Yeah. It's definitely been a good move. We even used to notice coming up here for vacation, you'd step out of the car after the drive and just even the air was fresher. Now we take it for granted. A couple nights ago, my wife and I, we were just out on our back porch area, and we heard 3 different sets of great horned owls, hooting back and forth just from our backyard. I take the dog out for walks in the morning. I see deer tracks, running through, or rabbit tracks. Like, I would never have got that in Grimsby, and being more connected to nature is important for me and for my wife and I, and the goals for our family and kids. So yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer to consider Westport. And even with having a Toronto job, I was a little bit reluctant about that, and the need to, like, when I need to go into the office, but you can get the Via Rail straight from Kingston right into Union Station, and you have the subways from there, so I don't need to go through that 3-hour traffic jam to get into downtown. So yeah, why would I live in a sea of red brake lights on my commute to work with a lot of pollution at night? Where we lived before, there was always light pollution. You couldn't see the stars. Don't have any of that here. It's just better, and we have not sacrificed anything by leaving a city or a suburb and coming here. I think we've just gained exponentially more. So a long-winded way of why Westport.
Oh no, it's great to hear you say in your own words things that we have sensed and felt and perceived, and that's why we established Watercolour today.
Yeah, actually when we were up cottaging, we knew Watercolour was coming to Westport, and so you drop by, pick up the pamphlet, do a drive around, learn more around the background of the development, the quality of the builds here. And it was actually just even a good rainy day excursion for us as tourists. Little did I know it was actually going to transpire into a move, and I could never have predicted it. But life throws us curveballs, and thankfully that one landed us here. So we're very happy here and can't see ourselves living anywhere else for considerable amount of years. So yeah. Yeah.
And is there anything you think people who might be considering a move here, is there anything you'd want them to know?
I think it's pretty basic. Yes, there's sewage. There is municipal water. Yes, there's high-speed internet, fiber optic cable. Yes, there's a grocery store in the town, and schools and churches nearby. Kingston is not so far of a drive away. I want people to know not to be daunted by getting outside of their comfort zone and thinking that, they're going to be living in the sticks or in, a rural setting, because I can be at the Montreal airport in 2.5 hours. I can be at Pearson in 3 hours pending traffic. I can fly out of the Ottawa International Airport or Syracuse right across the border in New York. So I live in the heart of, God's country of lakes and forests and fields, and but I still have access to all of those things. So I guess if I want anyone to know anything, it's you won't be sacrificing anything by moving here. And if you like the outdoors, then why the heck are you, suffering a commute in a sea of red lights or inhaling pollution, being in those very densely populated settings. So, yeah, I guess that's just one thing I want people to know is everything you've come to expect from living in suburbia you have here, except the lack of, population density and open spaces for exploration. So.
And how have you and Samantha found making friends? Because that's one thing that holds people back too sometimes.
Yeah,
they don't know, how am I going to make any friends? I
think that was our first question to the realtor when we were coming here. I can remember that because Sam was a little worried. She's like, what parks do families go to? Are there lots of families in the area? Are we going to be isolated in that perspective? And we found friends in no time at all. We've made friends, one through having a church family here, but even before we had picked a church, there's a huge library network in the area in Rideau Lakes, which have all kinds of different activities for kids. So my wife was taking the kids there and meeting a lot of other families that way. We have made a lot of quality friendships. There's no shortage of children, a lot of like-minded families of kids enjoying and being in nature and understanding where their food comes from. We have all that here. So that ended up being a non-factor because we phoned the realtor in a panic after we put down our deposit, asking about families and wondering what it was going to be like. And I guess you don't know until you try it. We found lots of people here overcame that with no challenges whatsoever.
Well, this has been great, Jonathan. I really want to thank you for making time to be with us here today.
Yeah, I guess I'd encourage anyone who's on the fence, Steve, that if they're craving their summertime vacations because they want the lake, or boating or hunting or anything like that, that's not something that you need to crave and plan a work schedule around. You can live in the middle of it and continue to work. And I forgot to add this part in, but financially it made a lot of sense for us to uproot from area where in Grimsby the real estate market was, higher there than it is in the Rideau Lakes area. So, I mean, we even saved on the sale of our house and buying a house in Watercolour and hit the mortgage hard that way, which was a blessing too. So anecdotally, it had to throw that in there because it's made sense on so many different fronts for the health and long-term, outcomes or dreams for our family. So, yeah.
My wife Diana gave me a magazine at Christmas, National Geographic, 100 places that could change your life. And I was thinking, well, really, Watercolour and Westport. Westport's really the star of the show.
Yeah.
Because, it is really people's home and cottage in one.
Yeah, it is. I personally don't know why anyone, after living through the pandemic and seeing the lockdowns and what happened in cities and restrictions, would not crave the opportunity to have the freedom to explore and be in nature if and when it happens again. So, I think anyone should consider rural living, and I would argue that Westport is extremely well set up for it for anyone leaving the city and adjusting to country life. So.
Well, thank you again, Jonathan. This is all we wanted to do, is have people share in their own words how they've been experiencing living here in Westport. And this has been great. No
regrets. Hope more young families come, and the girls would love more people to play with. They have lots through church and through libraries and school, but always welcome more. So hope to see more remote workers come this way, and the opportunity to network.
Well, that's exactly the reason we chose you, and are going to be interviewing a lot of remote workers as well.
Yeah.
Is trying to give a shout out to young families.
Yeah, just makes sense. I don't know why you'd ever live in a city. But that's me. Some people are city people, but we are not city people. So this works for us. But, all right. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for being here and for making time.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you for joining us today for the Watercolour Westport Stories podcast. We hope you've been inspired. You can follow, share our podcast with others through YouTube and Facebook, and connect with us through our website at watercolourwestport.com.